David. Thanks for inviting me here. It's fun to be here. Now, I'll warn you that a lot of times I come to a historical and genealogical society meeting and I'm speaking about genealogy. And I'm a member of the same society in Stone County. So anytime I give a presentation about genealogy, I find a way to work in the quilt trail, all right? So tonight, listen closely, I will find a way to work in some genealogy in this conversation. So let's see, how did I first hear about quilt trails? Well, first of all, I am a part-time staff member for Rural Community Alliance, and that's a nonprofit organization. We have chapters all across Arkansas. We have 66, and they are scattered everywhere. From the southeast to the southwest, a good many chapters in north central Arkansas. The one closest to you is a chapter, a very small one, but one we've worked with in Norfolk. So I was tickled to see that information about the Wolf House. I was there when they made the big announcement. I think that was last year when the governor came and they had gotten that turned over to the state and what good work they're going to do and maintain that. So that's great news. But a few years back, I think it was 10 years, in fact, in 2008, I went to a conference in North Carolina. And it was focused on rural education, but we had other topics that were going on. And we had a speaker there that talked about what Western North Carolina had done. Now, back in the day, they made their dollars off of the textile industry, right? And then what happened to that? It all went south, didn't it? Or overseas. And so they had to reinvent themselves in Western North Carolina. And they're in a beautiful part of the world, just kind of like we are in the Ozarks, some very pretty remote places. But the thing that they worked on was they developed trails, and I mean all kinds of trails that would attract people into their community. But the one that caught my attention was the quilt trail. It was the first time I'd ever heard of a quilt trail. So quilt trails are these beautiful painted quilt patterns. You take one block off of the quilt and you sketch it onto a board that's been primed, and then you paint it. And it's a beautiful creation that I love it because it does what I say here. It helps us preserve our heritage and our local history, and then it's something beautiful to look at for residents or for tourists, for anyone. So it captures a lot of those areas that are important to us. Now, a friend and I got started on a quilt trail. She and I had a conversation because she travels a lot and had seen quilt trails all, well, to the east of us and north of us. They're very popular. And so we got started talking about it and said, well, why don't we just do one in Stone County and see how that goes. So we got started and we were kind of slow. Now, she did most of the painting that went on, but my husband Philip has painted some as well. And so we finally got a lot of people involved. And as we would get one done, we would put a story in the newspaper. Well, after that very first one, we were contacted by a couple that said, hey, we already have quilt blocks, barn quilts. And so this picture here is at the Adams house, just on the mountain, up the mountain from Mountain View. And the story behind this, the Quilt Club members are going to love this, is that Carol loved quilt trails because it brought back memories of quilting. And when she was a little girl, she would, her mother, her aunts, and her grandmother would all quilt. And she even remembers playing under the quilt, you know, as they quilted. And she loved the stories that they told. I guess some of them were kind of juicy, I don't know. But she loved that, and so when she saw her first quilt trail, she said, we want to do some of that on our property in Mountain View. So they've actually got 4. And what a bonus when we didn't know we had any in Stone County. We're doing these by county, you know, and then we find out there's already 4. Well, that was just pure luck, I guess. So there you have the pinwheel and the bear claw on just an old barn shed. And then I want to tell you about Carol Adams. One day she brought me this brochure because they like to go out and travel. They have been to Indiana. Anyone ever heard of Gibson County, Indiana? See all these little bitty quilt blocks? What does that go to? What is that number down in that bottom corner?
It's on there. Union.
169, I think, and then does it continue over here? So can you imagine having that many quilt blocks in your county? Well, you know, we're not there and we may not ever get there, but it's a pretty interesting thing to look at how big it has become in certain places. You'll see these in Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, the Carolinas, and I think some up in the Northeast, Michigan, Indiana. So, did I say that was Indiana? I've not been there, but I'm just so intrigued by them having so many. Yeah, Gibson County, Indiana. So that was really cool to see where it can go with a quilt trail. This was one that a young family that lived in the Turkey Creek community wanted to do one, and she has, they have goats and sheep around their home and 4 children, and they designed this pattern with the 4, you know, it's bread basket. You see the 4 bread baskets, so that's for the 4 children, and it's a tribute to the former owners of the farm. The matriarch of that family it was a Mennonite family, and she baked bread all the time and delivered it as gifts. So they wanted it to be a tribute to her. All right, so this one is on my dad's barn at the Stone Van Buren County line. And that's 2 different blocks on the same barn. You're just seeing each end of the barn. And so, right after the Civil War, a man and his wife moved right there where I live now. The place is called, well, it became known as Rushing. And this one gentleman came from Alabama, and his name was John Hinkle. Then within just a year or 2, another gentleman came with his family, and they moved from Southern Illinois, and his name was E.O. Rushing. Well, these 2 men, of course, the Southern Illinois guy fought for the Union, and the Alabama guy fought for the Confederacy. But they put all that behind them and became friendly as neighbors, and their children married each other. And so that's my great-grandparents. So you see, I got my genealogy worked in there, didn't I? This one, I'm telling you some of these because I want you to know that there are stories, that the stories are fun, or they're rich, or they're just good stories, historical, some of them, and that I think that's equally important as the artwork that goes into the quilt blocks. This one is south of Mountain View, and I researched a little bit about Sugar Hill. I called, the community is called Sugar Hill, and I researched that just a little bit to find out where did that name come from. And there was an elderly lady that lives up the hill there at Sugar Hill. I called her on the phone, and she explained that years ago, a family lived there, and they had 7 daughters. And when those daughters got to be teenagers, old enough to date, the boys from down the mountain, Mountain View, would come up the mountain and date those 7 girls, you know. And so the boys from Mountain View named it Sugar Hill. This is a really artistic I mean, I was just stunned when they did it. I had no idea. But you recognize the pattern, right, quilters? The log cabin pattern. And it was done at the Ozark Folk Center State Park. And so you know that they have all these artisans and crafts people. I think there's knives on there. They painted all of those craft things onto as though that was the fabric, the pattern in the fabric. So you'll see baskets on there, you'll see candles, I see a sewing machine, brooms, they make brooms there, and knives, and you know, just some beautiful work went into that, and they volunteered their time after hours to paint on that. They had it going for a month or two, and it hangs down at the bottom of the by the parking lot at the general store at the Ozark Folk Center. This one is a simpler pattern, and I don't even know what the traditional pattern is, but the owner of it wanted to call it Music on the Court Square. And so it's just a tribute to the music makers that have preserved the folk music in and around Stone County, and of course they play around the square, and that's where this is located, just on the corner of the square. Quilt blocks can be done by families, and they can share something significant or interesting about that family. This one is down on the river, on the White River, just inside Stone County. You know, now that I'm thinking about it, I think you cross the river to get to this one, in which case this is possibly in Izard County. They possibly have their first quilt block and don't even know it. I'll have to research that one, because I have never thought about it, but it is the other side of the river. So anyway, the McIntyre family, they have been all over, or he has been all over the world planting trees, and so that's why that tree is on there. I remember that, and a very patriotic family. So they designed their own quilt block. Now here's one that I told you I'm past president of the Stone County Historical Society, and so this one they chose to do the crazy quilt pattern, but we had a gal who really dressed it up for us and made it pretty. It was a group of young adults from a church group that worked on it, so you see a stage of just partway finished there. And then the gal, the artist, came and put all the embellishments just like you would see on a crazy quilt. So when you go to the story on this one on the website, it's going to tell you what kind of things are in the museum and what kind of things the Stone County Historical Society does. And it brings people off, you know, that building is not on Main Street. It's a block or two off. So if you're going through the trail, and that will bring you there where you might not see that building otherwise. So we felt it was a good thing to do for our historical society. This one hangs on the Veterans Office, just a simple patriotic quilt block right there on the court square. And so our Veterans Services officer was happy to get that. This little one is on a historic Turkey Creek School. It was a one-room schoolhouse built in 1925. And so there's a long story about that on the website of the history of that school building and some of the names of students that attended there. This is an example of Mount Judy students up in Newton County are working on, they painted a couple of quilt blocks that are going into their trail up in Newton County. And the interesting thing about it is, look at this, where they're constructing it here, where they're painting it. And I said, wait a minute, are they freehanding that? Because it really looks like they are, that it's not taped off. So let me just advise you, we tape ours off. We use frog tape, and makes it a whole lot easier. So I think she was going to tell them that tip. But anyway, it's good to involve students in the project too. This is Searcy County's first block, and it's up in the Harriet community. I guess that's probably not that far from here, is it? Is it Virginia?
This is actually Cozy Home.
Oh, it's Cozy Home.
Yeah.
You know your...
Yeah, I know that because that's where my husband grew up.
Yeah.
But you turn off of 14.
Okay. And I think maybe
They're
the address is Harriet, but it's the Cozy Home community, right?
Rock Creek.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And they have a guest farm where you can come and spend a few days and milk the cow and do the chores and all that. So this is a great draw for them. That didn't sound like a whole lot of fun to me. Apparently to some people that's an adventure. So it's a... So again, a point here would be that businesses around town that want to attract some attention or some business, you know, they ought to get on the bandwagon here and do a quilt walk. All right, there's another one in Searcy County. The peach orchards are no longer there, but for years and years, they were known for the peach orchards. So one thing I was going to tell you about this is that Searcy County, it's called the Greater Searcy County Chamber, and it's all volunteer. They don't have any paid staff. And they decided to cover the cost of the materials for all of their quilt blocks. So materials, you know, the wood and the paint, and then volunteers painted them. And they are about to, I've seen a picture of their 20th one. We're going to put the 20th one for the Searcy County Trail up on the website in the coming week. Stone County, I think it's a competition now because we have number 19 up and we have number 20 in the works that will go up. So I think it's going to be a back and forth between Stone and Searcy counties. This is an artist, Jack, that painted these from Searcy County. And this one, this is the initial stage of the painting on this one, and then I'll show you what it looked like when he got all finished. He's a sign painter from way back, you know, where you did it this way. You know, you didn't do graphic design on the computer. You just, that's what it looked like. So that's the Mariner's Compass, and it hangs on the Gilbert General Store right down there at the Buffalo River. And it is striking. Van Buren County got on the Quilt Trail bandwagon, and it was the quickest that I'd seen a trail develop, so I was pretty impressed with it. But the strawberry was the first one that the coordinator painted that one, and it hangs on a strawberry farm. Well, they grow other things, but strawberries in May are their big, big thing. Then the one beside it there, y'all know that one, don't you? The double wedding ring. It was painted by someone else, and she wanted to recreate the actual quilt that her grandmother had made her. I think I've got that right. And her grandmother is up into her 90s. And so she recreated this, and can you imagine? I mean, I'm not recommending anyone do that, but each little bitty square has intricate things painted onto it. So I'd have to go with the simpler approach. Here's a couple more in Van Buren County. And it's just, the broken diamond is pretty interesting because all the shading just gives it that three-dimensional look. It's pretty incredible. And that hangs on a house near Fairfield Bay. The one beside it is the magnolia bud, and it just went up and it's on Highway 65, and it's hangs on I think they have a resale or a craft store or something at a addiction recovery place, and so they wanted to do that one, and it's a cool one too. All right, so where are we on the trail? Stone County was launched in 2016, and then Searcy County started theirs in 2017. And I haven't told you this yet, I don't think, but we require that a county has 12 quilt blocks up before we put you on the website and put you in brochures, because it's a destination. So we want you to have enough 12, at least, so that you would be a destination for someone wanting to drive the quilt trail. Van Buren County, as I said, launched in 2018, and within a few months had their first 12, and so they're on the website. Perry County, you remember Trinity, Virginia? She's got hers ready. The first 12 are about ready to go up, and really she has 15. She's just collecting the stories. See, some of that takes a little bit of time to gather the stories. Newton County, where I pointed out the students, that's in progress. They have 3 or 4 done. Pike County has a couple done. Baxter County, let me tell you, and then Boone County is in progress. But let me tell you how Baxter County got in on this. The Quilt Trail website, let's see if I can get to it. Did you say you pulled it up for me, David?
Yeah, if you go down to the taskbar at the bottom and hit the Chrome.
Right here?
Should be there.
There you go. Okay. On the Quilt Trail website, we have a little block for each county, and you click on the block, to enter the trail. And you can make comments in there too. And one day I got a comment from a lady named Virginia. And she said, has anybody done this in Baxter County or say anything about it? I said, well, no, but we're going to have a meeting in Leslie next week. Would you come? And she did. And look what happened. She got recruited. I was just trying to get all the way to the bottom and show you that there are comments down here. Yeah. So, people from out of state look at these. The Adamses that I told you about, once we started promoting it, the first car that came by, I think, was from California. Now, we don't think that they drove all the way from California just to see our quilt trail, but they were interested in it, once they were there and visiting. So, just gonna go. Do you see all the storytelling that goes on there? So that's where kind of sometimes the quilters and their artistic interests kind of dovetail with historical society and your interest in preserving history. And so I hope that with this trail that in Baxter County that y'all will work together and help each other in that regard, making it some pretty blocks and some good stories. Okay, I'm gonna go over here and see what kind of handouts I have. We have brochures. Now this is just Stone and Searcy County. The next one we'll do in the next month or two, we'll have 4 counties rather than 2, so it'll probably be twice bigger. But I invite you to pick one up and come travel the trail. And look at the website though before you go, because we've added a few since the printing of this. Let's see what else we got. Ozark Byways is a magazine that my organization does, and it's for North Central Arkansas. So if you would like to pick one of those up, you're welcome to do that. I have instructions on how to make a barn quilt that's front and back here with some very detailed instructions. And then we have the Quilt Trail owner agreement that you sign before we put you on the website or put you in a brochure. You know, we wouldn't want to just put somebody on there and they not know what they're getting into. Because one of the things it says on there is you understand that this might bring more traffic to your place of business, your home, whatever, wherever you're putting it. So we want that to be. Is there anybody here from another county besides Baxter? Or are you all Baxter County? Okay. I had brought some, if someone's interested in starting a trail in a different county, this is just informational for that. I also have with me membership forms for Rural Community Alliance. One thing I discussed with Virginia when we first started talking Quilt Trail was that this is a program of Rural Community Alliance, and we do where we have some members, chapters, and though we have a chapter in Norfolk, it's small, it has just about 7 members, so we're looking to have a chapter, or at least members in the county, about 20 members before we start doing projects of this scope. So we would be happy for you to join the organization. You would probably get an email a month or something like that from our executive director. The membership fees are $10 lifetime, so it won't be too much of an investment. But we do a lot of things across the state. We're doing day trips where we organize that. We've done those in Van Buren County, and we've done them in places like Rosebud and Romance and Mount Vernon. Have you heard of those places? So we really believe in supporting rural places and helping them showcase what they have, because you know what? Rural places have a lot to offer, and a quilt trail is just one of those ways to preserve those assets and showcase them for residents to enjoy and visitors. So could I take questions? Do we have time to do that?
Yeah. Virginia is here, isn't she? Can you introduce her?
Virginia, stand up here.
And like Renee said, we are starting one in Baxter County. We've got about, I think about a half a dozen that's in process right now that people have committed to doing. I think they're ready to start painting some of them. And that we're looking for more. If anybody has a barn that they want one put on, we'd love to do that. We have some committed in Norfolk, 2 there, one over at Henderson on a log home, which will be really neat. And then down on the River Road, what's your address down there, Wanda?
Grassy Drive.
South of Gassville, right, yeah, down there. And we're hoping to get quite a few down there. There's one that is already up that actually, it was kind of like what Renee said, that they found out that there was some that already had them on a building when they announced it, and it's out on West Road. You may have seen that if you've driven out there. I forgot, I can't think of the lady's, Julie Perry. It's where she lives. And she actually has a sign right there by her mailbox that is not on the quilt trail, but it's just to let people know that that's where her quilt blocks are. And she says everybody uses it as a directional thing. If they're given directions out on West Road, you go another mile past the quilt block or whatever, you know. So, yes.
How far out West Road is that?
It's, I think, just a couple of miles. I'm not sure. I've driven out there just one time to see it. She has kind of a circle drive in front of her house, and it's on a...
It's right before the church on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
You know, it's on the right.
You
I
know
don't
where
what
that
church
is,
that
yeah.
is.
Is it a little metal church? It's a little church across.
But that's the only one right now that is officially up. There are other people, when we talked about it at the Quilt Guild meeting recently, that have quilt blocks, but you know, we may be able to incorporate some of those that are already up, depending on where they're located and so forth. So if you know of anybody that has one, you know, just let us know. And be glad to help, you know, if anybody wants to do one and you don't know how to do it, like Renee said, we've got directions and we've got people that can help you, you know, get started, help you pick out a pattern even, so. Okay.
Does everybody have your contact information if they want to get a hold of you to?
Right, it's actually, you know, on the website, and
It is on the website, and that form on the end of the table, Virginia, that's the agreement, and that has Virginia's contact
Okay.
information too.
And you
I
need
think I have
12
some-
to
I think I
be,
have some cards with me too, if anybody just wants a card.
you need 12 in order for it to be
We
an
need
official.
12 to get on the
trail.
official trail, so. And I really don't think we'll have any problem.
Oh,
You know,
good.
maybe spring before we get them all done, but.
That's neat.
You might want to explain a little bit about the rules
Oh, okay. Okay.
and how you pick a quilt block.
You're right. You can tell us. No.
It's
No,
interesting.
when you decide on a quilt block that you want to put up, it does have to be approved by Renee, because we want them to be different, you know, even, not just in this county, but also over the Arkansas Quilt Trail, because people will be traveling from one county to another, and they don't want to see the same double wedding ring quilt, whatever, you know, in each county. So it does have to be submitted for approval. We ask that they be at least 4 foot square, which would be half of a piece of plywood, you know. It can go, some of them are up to 8 foot square, right? They do need to be on a building. It can be on a barn, it can be on your house, it can be on a garden shed, whatever you've got, you know. But the main thing is that it can be seen from the road, where people can park and take pictures if they want, you know.
We talked, Virginia and I did before here, that, before this, that, you know, if there is a place downtown where there's foot traffic, then a smaller one might work there. You know, a 2x2, if you're walking by, you can see it well, but if you're driving by, it probably needs to be a 4x4.
Or if you were going to put 2 blocks up, you could possibly, like I think Wanda's going to put 2 blocks on hers, you could, if you wanted to, go a little smaller with each one, you know, because the total effect is going to be larger and be noticeable. So, does anybody have any questions about what we're doing in Baxter County?
Do you have any special considerations for business people that want to put them on their place of business? You know, that they don't become just an advertisement or something?
Right. Well, like Remember Me Quilt Shop is actually in the process of moving to College Street in the Interiors Marketplace building where that was before. And she's going to have at least 2 on her building. But they will be quilt blocks. It won't say Remember Me Quilt Shop on it or anything like that. It'll be just a, you know, a block that means something to her, you know, or to their, you know, their family.
And we have addressed that because we've had some sponsors say, well, we'll contribute if you'll put a little sign on the bottom of our business, and we decided, no, we want to keep it pure.
I think you're right about that.
And not put advertising on it. So we don't, yeah, we've steered away from that. Now, initially, we do adapt some, because initially, one of the rules was it had to be on a paved road. And then I started getting requests from all kinds of cool places, really spectacular barns and such as that where they wanted to place them. And so we changed that requirement to an easily navigable road. And it needs to be in a place where you can pull off the highway and be safe while you're looking at it and taking pictures of it too. So some kind of pull off or parking spot.
Most of your good barns are out in the country off of the paved road.
Right.
That's true.
And you know, we've got a lot of historical buildings, you know, in the county, and I would love to see them, you know, on those historical buildings if we can. You know, it would, there's so much history there, and the story behind them all would be great, you know, to have on it, so.
And were you gonna
We have a
say
question
that,
back
or is
here.
that- Yes.
20 blocks for a county would make a great quilts. Has anybody thought about making a quilt out of the blocks that are on the trail? And putting it in a
I
courthouse?
think Baxter County should be the first to do it.
You're in charge.
And so, you know, you got, when you get to the quilt blocks, then you actually make a quilt with all those
Somebody can make
patterns.
a law
Okay,
against you
sure, we
making
can do
your quilt.
that.
There we go.
Now, she,
That would be neat, wouldn't it?
It would be neat.
How many people are from the Quilt Guild here? There we go. Yeah.
Y'all can do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I don't think so, because that's far
Yeah.
enough off, it's later, so.
okay. So that's just a barn quilt book with lots of good pictures and stories that I got early on. And if it's been done, it would probably be in that book. But if it's not, you just need to do it here, okay?
Can I throw in a little snatch of history that relates to the fact that Tom Revere is going to come and talk to us next month? In our Heritage Center, we have a quilt that her family brought by covered wagon from Georgia, and it's framed and up on the wall, showing one large block. We'll be bringing it with us next month to the meetings. Now, it's not a wooden quilt block, it's a quilt.
It's a real one.
Is it replicable in paint? Could it be
It could be.
It
painted?
would be, yes.
Oh, by the way, Tommy's going to
I
come and
have
speak
the
to us with
patterns
her
and all.
great-grandma's dress on.
Oh, okay. That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, it'll be
You're gonna have a great meeting next time. That sounds good. All right, any other questions? Yes.
Hey, I've got a suggestion for you.
Okay.
I'm in the county fair business, that's what I do, all over the state. That would be a great place to advertise and also to get them in as entries or at least photos of barn quilts. It's entries in the county
Yes.
fair, and also you get a display at each of the county fairs.
Someone else had a similar idea here, right?
I know him.
You do? How well?
Really well, that's my husband.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, you're not sitting together, so that was where we
They're telepathic.
That's why we're still married.
Yes, we talked before the meeting, and she had a great suggestion along the very same line, that would be the best way to get the word out, and it incorporates some of those skills, and could be competition, and you said they would get extra points for doing something new like that, right?
The county fairs do with new exhibits, and this would be a new exhibit in our fair.
Okay.
We pay cash money too for places.
Is that it on questions? All right. I hope I covered it.
You did a great job, why don't we show her?